Hello and welcome. My name is Quasigod or Michael, and this is my review of the Ninjutso Origin 1X. Just to clarify, this mouse was sent to me for review by Ninjutso. So this is a review copy. It's not the normal retail copy. So by the time you're able to buy this mouse, there will be some changes made to it. So this mouse is an $80 premium wireless mouse, and that's already just really interesting right off the bat. Really good, really premium specs and wireless for only $80, and it's at 65 grams. Going spec wise, I don't think there are really many mice that compete with this mouse, especially in that price range. So I was really excited to get my hands on it just to see if it could actually live up to the specs. And personally, I think it has so far. So besides the specs, one thing you can't just see from looking at the product is that the shape, at least for me, is really comfortable. It's based off the Microsoft IntelliMouse shape, which is a really classic shape, but with a few changes. It's a bit smaller, and I believe they also changed it to make it fit more grips, as the IntelliMouse was really more for just a palm grip. This mouse works really well for me in quill grip, and I have 17 by 9.5 centimeter hands, and it's just been a joy to use. Very comfortable. My aim's been really solid on this. I'd say even better than my old main, which was the XM1R. The shape is also quite safe, making it easy to recommend to just about anyone. Everyone who I've had try this mouse out has said it's a comfortable shape. One of the next things I noticed after the shape was the quality of the mouse. I was kind of concerned for how the shell would feel, especially given how light it is and at this price point, and I was wondering if they'd be able to keep the shell feeling solid since it doesn't even have any honeycomb pattern, and it's 65 grams. Surprisingly to me, actually, the shell is completely solid, really well built. I can only get creaking on the sides if I really just try to like destroy this thing. I feel like my finger's just going to go through the plastic before I can make this thing flex. I also haven't been able to get my side buttons to actuate just by pressing into the side, which is always nice to see because that's been really common in mice recently. On the bottom, there's just a little bit of flex on the bottom, but I mean, I don't think bottom flex matters. If you're concerned by it, that's important to know. But I don't think bottom flex is really going to do anything in game. As you can see also on the bottom here, we have the DPI button, the on-off switch, and the 3335 sensor this mouse is rocking. The DPI switch can only go to the steps of 400, 800, 1600, and 3200. This might be a concern if you want to use something outside those, and if you do, it's important to note that there is no software for this mouse. You can't go in, you can't change the DPI steps, you can't change any of the bindings. And one thing that's pretty unfortunate to me is that you can't change or you can't check the battery of the mouse, which I really don't think is good for a wireless mouse. I think wireless mice should always have software, because one, it's just nice to have software to be able to set your own DPI, and when it's wireless, being able to see the battery is pretty useful. It's not fun just having to guess what battery your mouse is at. Oh no, it wasn't that big a deal because the battery on this mouse has performed really well. It took a full week of pretty heavy use for it to die on me. But when it did die, it died completely suddenly with no warning. So talking more about the shell of the mouse, the coating is really nice in my opinion. It's sort of that rubberized coating that the XM1 and the KPU have. It's pretty similar to them. Maybe just a bit less rubberized and a bit more like solid plastic feeling, but it feels really grippy. It's really comfortable to use, but although it does pick up fingerprints pretty easily, maybe something to be wary of, especially if you have maybe less dry hands. My hands are pretty dry, so it's not been an issue for me, but if yours aren't super dry, you might be getting fingerprints just all over this thing. The main clicks here are using Kale 8.0 switches, which are just super tactile, super crisp. My favorite switches on the market, easily. And I think these are also a pretty damn good implementation of them. I'd say they feel just as good as, maybe even a little better than my XM1R switches. They feel a little stiffer than it, but also a bit more tactile and just a bit more crisp. One unfortunate part of the main clicks is that there is a bit of side play, as you can see right there. And when you click down, there's also some wiggle on the clicks. Same on the other side. It's especially concerning when you see how small that area between the clicks are, and they can pretty easily rub up against each other if you're using them both at once. I believe they're fixing this, or at least attempting to fix this on the retail copy and making that gap a bit bigger on it, which should hopefully just alleviate the issue. But just something to be wary of and look out for on the retail copy, just to make sure they fully fix it. The side buttons for this mouse are pretty nice. They're definitely clicky. They're pretty crisp and tactile. I definitely wouldn't call them mushy like I would for some other mice with side buttons. The only problem for me is that mine feel a bit different. The front one is a good bit stiffer than the back one, and the back one has some pre and post travel, which isn't all that great. The pre and post travel isn't anything insane. It doesn't make them unusable or even uncomfortable to use. Just something to mention. And the tension on the front side button made it kind of annoying to use in games at first. I got used to it pretty quickly, but just something to notice. The scroll wheel is a pretty fine scroll wheel. It's pretty smooth and you can move it very easily, but it's also definitely tactile enough to move one at a time when you're using it for games. It's just been no problem whatsoever for me, and I've been using it pretty easily, and I've been enjoying it. On the bottom, we've got some pure white PTFE feet, which glide pretty well for me. There was a little bit of a break-in period where they didn't glide quite as smoothly and were a little more scratchy, but now that they're broken in, they're very smooth. I'd say even a bit smoother than my XM1R, and they glide a bit better too. So, big fan of these skates. I'd probably still replace them with aftermarkets just because aftermarkets are pretty much always an upgrade, but these are definitely solid for stock feet. Onto the cable. Cable doesn't really matter. It's a wireless mouse. You're probably not going to be using it all too often, but like I said, you can't check the batteries. So if you ever suddenly come into a situation where you're going to need to plug it in and use it while it's charging, the cable's not too bad. It's not too stiff. It's pretty flexible. Solid enough for a cable for a wireless mouse, because you have to remember it also has to charge the mouse. So definitely not a problem. Now onto the wireless performance. As you can see right here, I have the USB dongle in an extender. This isn't the one the retail copy will come with because this is my own, as the review copy did not come with one of these. I had a few issues before I put it into one of these. While it was plugged into my computer, it would just occasionally cut out and I would see my cursor skipping. It seemed like there was some type of interference, but once I got it in this, I've just had no issues from there. It's worked perfectly. It hasn't skipped on me, at least no times I've noticed. It hasn't stopped working at all. It's been pretty great. Now, this mouse is using a 3335, and I know some people are disappointed by that because some of the newer wireless mice are using the 3370, which is definitely an upgrade over the 3335. I haven't had any issues with it, and some say that the liftoff distance on the 3335s is too high. I don't think that's true for this mouse. It seems to be at about 1 millimeter. It's quite low. Definitely hasn't affected me in game. And the sensor definitely tracks completely fine, well enough for me to hit fast shots, and well enough for me to easily do 180s or 360s when I need to. With quick movements, I haven't had it spin out once, which is always good and should be expected with any modern mouse. Overall, this mouse is just really impressive to me. $80, 65 grams, Kale 8.0 switches, which are usually aftermarket switches, solid feet, good enough side buttons, and a solid scroll wheel. There really just isn't much to complain about with this mouse, especially if they can fix the main clicks with the wobble, and if they can improve the side buttons a bit, especially the back one, because I think most people have had pre and post travel on their back side button. If they can improve those, I think this is just an absolutely top tier wireless offering. Honestly, I think it already is a top tier wireless offering. Even if the mouse were to stay exactly the same as this review copy is when it releases fully, I really don't think it'd be an issue. I still think it'd be a top tier mouse because $80 is just so cheap for a mouse with these specs and of this quality. And I think some wireless mice, in my opinion, are just let down by their shape. And that's why I haven't been using a wireless mouse. I've been using the XM1R until I got this. but this mouse really does have an incredible shape. My aim has felt absolutely on point with it. If anything, it's felt even better than it did with the XM1R. This mouse, it is an Ergo, but it has a pretty narrow grip width in the middle, which I think is part of the reason it feels so much more natural to aim with than any other Ergo to me. I've never aimed as well with Ergos as I do with ambidextrous or symmetrical mice. This is really the only mouse that isn't true for. So overall, this is just a very easy to recommend mouse to pretty much everybody. I don't think there's anybody that would put their hands on this mouse and just say it's not good or just say it's not comfortable. It's a very safe shape. I think it should fit most grips. It definitely fits mine very well. So yeah, this is an incredibly impressive offering from Ninjutso for their first mouse. I'm really excited to see what they can make in the future, just because, I mean, their first product being this much of a banger is just awesome. Now, that is going to be pretty much everything for this review. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any constructive criticism, please leave it in the comments. Now, for the end of the video, I'm just going to have some of my extra clips that I didn't use throughout the rest of the video play. Enjoy.
How do you see